everyone, and welcome to Hanukkah Erotica Book Club. I'm Razel, and I'm here with Malia, my co-host and stepsis. Hi, Mal.
Hello. You didn't say Reiki Energy Healer this time, but I forgive you. I think everyone already knows.
For new listeners, my co-host, my stepsis, and Reiki Energy Healer, Malia Levin.
I'm sending you all healing vibes.
Thank you. I feel them. Good. So, full disclosure for our listeners, normally we start the episode by giving some feedback and kind of reactions to our last episode, but we're trying something new and recording this before the release of Unorthodox Love by Heidi Chertok. So we're excited to talk to you about your reactions and maybe even Heidi's reaction to our episode, but we don't have that yet.
Right. So now we're just moving on ahead.
Moving on ahead to Sadie on a Plate. But Mal, there are two things about Unorthodox Love that I wanted to talk about and didn't. Should I save it for our next episode where we talk a little bit about the feedback from Unorthodox Love?
I don't know. I feel like if they're fresh to you now, you should just talk about them now.
Okay, listeners and readers of Unorthodox Love and people who grew up in the Orthodox community. In Unorthodox Love, Panina drinks a cocktail called a sea breeze, which my only relationship with is that my mother-in-law orders sea breezes from weddings.
That's so funny.
Is a sea breeze like a drink? I don't think a sea breeze is a cocktail that like a secular person walks into a bar and orders. Do you know about this?
What is it? I don't know anything about a sea breeze.
I think it might be cranberry juice and pineapple juice and vodka, maybe like a Cosmo, but also with pineapple juice.
That's so funny. It's like the cocktail of choice.
A sea breeze is a cocktail containing vodka with cranberry juice and grapefruit juice. Excuse me. The cocktail is usually consumed during summer months. The drink may be but it doesn't say obviously. I think it's a firm cocktail of choice. Does anyone have any intel on this? Agree, disagree? Please let us know.
Okay. I know nothing, but I feel like Frum Jews are not big on the cocktails in general, but I don't know. I'm no expert.
I know. I'm not either, but okay. 2 crystal snifters came up in the book.
What's a snifter? Like a decanter for wine or for like spirits?
Yes, exactly. Something that had to do with a bar. Is snifter a Yiddish word?
No, snifter.
Snifter, for me then, is a word that sounds like Yiddish if it's English.
It's one of those words. Wow. No, I think it's definitely just an English word. Snifter. It does sound like, like he was nifter.
100%. Crystal snifter sounds like the most Yiddish. It's like Hamish sounding to me. Right. What you get for the engagement gift? I got her a gorgeous crystal snifter.
Wow. A snifter's a type of stemware, short-stemmed glass. Oh, see, I was even wrong about what it is. I was imagining one of those crystal, like, things that they use to hold wine
a decanter,
or something.
that was the right
word.
Like
a decanter, yeah. It's not that. It's just like, it's a wine glass, basically.
Or it's meant for,
or like
brandy.
Right. Scotch, whatever, yeah. Brandy glass. It's a brandy glass. Or a cognac glass.
A crystal snifter, for me, was one of those words that came up in Unorthodox Love.
Wow. Okay. Good. Noted.
Yep. I couldn't wait. I honestly couldn't wait.
No.
So,
you got to bring those things up when they're top of mind. That's...
Malia, there's one more.
Oh, okay.
The hotel lobby date. The hotel lobby date.
Oh, yes. I can't believe we didn't talk about that. That's a whole world, the hotel lobby date. Have you ever been on a hotel lobby date?
So it got me thinking. Okay. I started to go through all of my memories of all of the dates.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been on a hotel lobby date. Have you?
No, never.
I think I've seen them in action.
I've definitely seen them, especially in Israel. I remember, like, those Jerusalem hotel lobbies are, you can't go through one without tripping over shidduch dates.
Floor to ceiling.
Floor to ceiling. I don't know how prevalent they are in New York. First of all, New York actually has cool hotels where I do actually think it would legitimately be fun to go on a hotel lobby date. But
yeah, for sure. But that's different than a hotel lobby date.
Right. No, I've never been on one. I feel like, so there's a place around the corner from us, like one of those paint your own pottery places that I feel like is always packed with shidduch dates, and I wonder if that's sort of like the Brooklyn version of a hotel lobby date, because there aren't so many hotels in Brooklyn.
Right. It's so interesting that a hotel lobby date is, so it's like for listeners that don't know about this tradition, there's a Jewish law that comes up in unorthodox love quite a bit where men and women who are not married cannot be in the same room or with a door shut. And so they go on dates in very public places.
Right.
But it's like a hotel lobby from in like the secular perspective has such a like horny undertone of like, let's get a drink and then go upstairs.
Right. Go up to a room. Yeah. It's true.
It's like a restaurant's just as public of a place. So is a Starbucks.
Right. Like, why wouldn't it just be a Starbucks? I guess it's like, right. Well, I guess there's a lot of issues. Anytime you're getting food out, like either it's a kosher restaurant, in which case it's like a major investment of like money and time, and maybe you don't want that on a first date. Or like if you're getting coffee at a place that's not kosher, you're in like Panina's like order an iced decaf world where I guess you're just navigating that and like why.
Plus, if you're a Cholav Yisrael, you can't even have the milk at Starbucks. But what are you getting in a hotel?
Nothing. I think you're
water?
just sitting. No, I don't think you're getting anything. I think you're just sitting.
At least in Jerusalem,
I don't think a hotel lobby date involves food or drink. It's literally you're just sitting.
Right, but rather than sit in your own living room, you're sitting in the hotel's living room. Anyway, Sam's fascinated by this, as he should be, because it's wonky. Wonka-doodle-doo. So Sam in Unorthodox Love was surprised. Anyway, I'm sorry. I know we're talking about Sadie on a plate in today's episode, but I went back and looked over some notes, realized there were certain things we didn't touch on, and I needed to.
No, but I would like to hear if anyone knows or has experienced the hotel lobby date and can share. Maybe it's actually great. I mean, maybe it's like you don't have to worry about navigating drinking or eating or whatever. You could just hang out and talk. You're in a like, so you could people watch. Maybe it's actually a great idea.
Like a park bench in Central Park, but like upholstered.
Yeah, but indoors and yeah. You get to, like,
let us know.
Right.
Also, Heidi, are you listening to this episode, even though it's not the Unorthodox Love episode? Because there's a part where it says something like Angela Chase said in My So-Called Life, where she's like, he's so beautiful, it hurts to look at him, which is what Angela said about Jordan Catalano. That was in this book.
Who did she say that about? Sam?
Sam. Something about him being so beautiful, it hurts to look at him. Straight out of Angela's vocabulary.
That's cute.
So,
any reference to My So-Called Life endears you to us. So, I mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Because even though we're on a season 2 now, a lot of our listeners know us pretty well. But one thing they don't know is that Malia founded the Facebook group, I Would Sell My Soul for Jordan Catalano.
That is one of the highlights of my social media life as a whole. Like, that group really took off. I wonder how it is today.
Off.
Yeah.
Well, Facebook groups, I don't know if they exist anymore in that way. Yeah. That was a different kind of a group.
It was.
We should see if it's even there. It might have been archived.
It's probably archived. But yeah, it really had its heyday. It spoke to a generation. I mean, you know, as did Jordan Catalano himself.
Yeah, and I love Brian Krakow. But...
I like imagining Sam Kleinfeld as a Jewish Jordan Catalano, though. That's cool.
But yeah, definitely would hurt to look at him. Okay, so those are some things. But we will talk more about Unorthodox Loves, the feedback from last episode on our next episode. And tonight, we're diving in to Sadie on a Plate by Amanda Elliott.
Yes. Okay, I feel like I need to say at the outset, I never watched one episode of Top Chef or any cooking or baking competition show ever. Never saw one.
Oh my God.
No idea.
First of all, a shock, because I think you'd love them.
I don't know why they never appealed to me. Just like, why am I watching food that then I can't eat and then the show's over? Like, I don't know. It just initially the concept didn't make sense to me, and then I never jumped on the bandwagon, and then I felt it was too late, I guess.
Right, I get it. That all makes sense. That makes sense. But you know what? So the thing is, Sadie on a Plate takes place in a fictional Top Chef called Chef Supreme.
Right. I get that. I know Top Chef just from the culture. Like, I understand what it is.
Of course. But the thing is, just like I'm sure Great British Baking Show, same thing.
Yes,
I mean, even just like spending 5 seconds with our parents, you get to hear those references, because I feel like they can't eat a pastry now without making a Great British Baking Show reference. Have you noticed that about them?
I have gotten that inkling, yes.
Yes. It's very hard to serve them any pastry without them pretending that they're judging. They like start speaking in a British accent and be like, it's too crumbly.
It's good they get their kicks.
Yeah, they do. But
yeah,
the thing that you didn't know about this book is like how amazingly accurate Amanda Elliott is at describing what you imagine Chef Supreme to feel like from the chef perspective. And also, Molly, you might notice who isn't here today's episode. It's just us.
It's just the two of us. No guests to speak of.
No guests, but there's someone that I went to high school with was on and won season 2 of Top Chef. And so my request for him to join this episode is just lost in his DMs because he never saw it. So I know it's just like in purgatory.
It happens.
But
what's he doing? Like, does he have a restaurant? Like, how did it go? How's it all going?
Yeah, well, I don't know if he still does. I think he does, but he had a restaurant in Brooklyn called the Gorbals after. Let me see if it still exists. And he it closed in 2014. He opened a second iteration in Williamsburg. We'll see what he's up to. I'm looking on his he's the owner chef of Robin Hood in Los Angeles now.
Okay. Cool.
He also worked at a Mario Batali restaurant for a lot of years in Gramercy, Casamono, and he won season 2 of Top Chef. Then he opened the Gorbals in Williamsburg, which I think did really well. Then he opened a second version of it in LA, and now he owns this restaurant, Ramen Hood. But he and I went to high school together. He was 2 years ahead of me, and I guess elementary school too. We lived near each other, I think, and he was a really, really funny guy. I did not know about his interest in cooking. He dated seriously. He dated 2 of my friends over the years, and we didn't know each other that well. But I know if he saw the DM, he probably would have been pretty psyched to read this book with us and come on. And I thought it would have been fun to have him on to hear about the perspective of being a Jew on Top Chef in the early years. And obviously in Sadie on a Plate, she's a Jew on Top Chef. And then the other thing, I have my cousin. My brother's cousin, Howie Kleinberg, he was also on Top Chef.
Oh.
And how that cousin has passed away.
Oh.
So we were not able to invite him. But for people who watched Top Chef as religiously as I did, I'm sure you remember Alon Hall from season 2 because he won, and it was it was the second season. It was like really, he won. It was really cool. Cousin Howie, he was like he was a bald guy who was always just like sweating into his food. Like, I just feel like people would have remembered him. They're all very sweaty on the show. And by the way, Sadie in this book is also very sweaty all the time.
She talks about how sweaty she gets. Yeah.
So totally. Like, and I also, I don't know, I thought Amanda Elliott did such a good job building this world out of this Chef Supreme world.
So it converted me. I mean, as I was listening to this book, I was like, should I be going back and watching the full Top Chef oeuvre? There's a lot there.
100%. There's 20 seasons. I started watching season 20 this week.
Oh wow!
And so much of things that happen in this book happened, which is that one thing that's very funny is that so Sadie's from Seattle, and she kind of recently lost her job at a kind of fancy or whatever trendy restaurant in Seattle, and it gets a call from a producer on Chef Supreme and blah blah blah. She goes, and but one thing that's happening is that what's happening on the production side of things, and there's the house that everyone stays in, and there's the big SUV that they drive to and from the different locations that they're filming at, the regular filming studio and off-site locations, and the head of the production assistants talk about how comfortable the SUV is, that is so Top Chef. It's very, very Top Chef and very Bravo of them. I don't really watch other Bravo shows. I know a lot of our listeners probably do because those Real Housewives shows are so popular, and but Top Chef's the only one I watch. But the product placement thing is real. It's at the end of this quickfire, the winner will receive immunity in the next challenge and also receive $10,000 furnished by Saratoga Spring Water. It's always there. There was a whole quickfire in season 20 that was had to be a appetizer, amuse-bouche, put on a Ritz cracker, furnished by Ritz. The winner got this much money, furnished by Ritz. Right. So this idea that they're sitting in the SUV, talking about the SUV. But at one point, someone was so upset about something that happened. She's like, and I hate this SUV. And it's so uncomfortable. because she didn't want what she was saying to be on camera.
Yes,
Really very funny stuff.
That was very funny.
So just like the world building of this, I thought was amazing, to the point that I thought that at the end of the book, like in her acknowledgments or author's note, she was going to say like, I did all this research into understanding more about Top Chef, and because it was so good and so accurate and felt so real, but she didn't mention it at all.
Interesting. I wonder how she got her. Yeah, it felt just fun, like being behind the scenes of any reality TV show and like understanding how like she got that balance of like, it's real, but it's also them acting. You know,
exactly.
they're not actors, but they are acting. And part of it was also that they're like trying to do what will keep them on the show. Not just cook well, but also like, whatever, jumping ahead, like there's two characters who are like very publicly sort of hooking up in places where they know the camera will catch them. And then basically it turns out that they saw from watching past seasons that contestants who are hooking up are more likely to be kept on for longer because like people want to see that and it keeps the ratings up. So they were like, let's just hook up so we can stay on the show. But they actually like have no interest in each other. It's all fake. So it's like you get to see that like that balance between like it's reality, but it's also TV. So that was fun too.
I loved it. So there's so much. There's just so much richness with what's happening, you know, on camera and off camera, and why. And, you know, so Sadie cooks Jewish food. That's her thing.
Yes.
And she does not cook kosher food. It's Jewish food.
Right. They make a point of that. She does a lot of like, she does a bacon dish. She does a scallops dish. Like she's pretty clear. And her Jewish identity, it seems like, is pretty like secular Jew, I would say. Like, you know, she doesn't she's a straw, you know, she loves food. Food's her thing. She loves like the food of the Jewish people, but she's not like a religiously observant Jew.
Right. But food and her family and her grandma is like what connects her to her own identity, her Jewish identity, and her connection to food. And so it's like this whole kind of, there's the person that she ends up falling for, who she meets on the flight over from Seattle to New York, this guy Luke, who they discover on the flight. They look at each other's hands and she's like, you're a chef, because she sees that he has blisters in all the places that a chef would have blisters and burns. Right. And he's like, so are you. And then they sit and watch Chef Supreme together on the flight, like talking about Chef Supreme. It's like, I've been catching up on this a lot lately. And they, you know, they kind of have an instant chemistry. And then after the flight, when they land, he takes her to this kind of like speakeasy restaurant behind a convenience store in Astoria, because she's going to be in Astoria, and she hasn't told him why. She signed an NDA. They have this really, really fun and kind of like fun, magical, kind of sexy night together, that first night.
Yes.
Where he like knows the bartender, and the bartender makes her this delicious, like herby, like she describes it as what a mojito dreams of being, like some kind of delicious, rummy, I don't know, citrusy, herbaceous drink.
Yes.
And they had this really fun night eating delicious Korean food. And
it's like what the drink would have been in the Snowbound in Her Boss's Bed gala, like lots of fresh herbs.
Yeah. Exactly. Totally. Herbaceous and cruciferous. Yes. Yeah. The flavors of the summer at the, yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. So like all this kind of like, she has this like really great night tasting and eating foods together, hanging out at this like kind of, I think being in a speakeasy behind a convenience store also just feels like illicit, and just like what's going on here. They have this really fun night.
And he's like in the know, you know, like he knew just where to find the speakeasy and how to get in. He's a regular there. He's like sort of in the know with this like cool underground food thing.
Right. And it's all this delicious Korean food, and he's Korean, and never at any of this, like, because there's an inner monologue of her and Grandma Ruth at a lot of times, but she's not really so concerned about him not being Jewish. Like, it's really not an issue for her at all. Like, just like eating bacon or tray for any of that. Like, it's just like, it's not important to her. Like, that's not what her identity is about. Her identity is about her connection to these Jewish old world foods. And so she's thinking about making kugels and latkes and blintzes. But one thing that I thought was funny was there's this thing where it's like they want, one of the challenges is to make something that you've made, your family used to make, or something like that. And it, by the way, again, in the season 20 that I'm catching up on right now, like, this totally happens. But she makes a blini and she makes it sweet instead of savory, but it seems like it's going to be savory, so it's like kind of tricky. And instead of caviar, she makes little tapioca balls and blah blah blah.
Right.
But her grandma never made them. Like, she tells an entire story about she used to wake up at her grandma's and she made them. And she's like, I know that my Chef Supreme loves family stories. She goes, Grandma Ruth was cackling in the background. I never in my life cooked you a bellini, dear. I knew that. Obviously, I knew that. What was I supposed to say? Chef Supreme loved family stories. The sappier, the better. The contestant competing to prove something to their estranged dad who looked down on their career choice. The contestant striving to live up to the example of their dead mom. More than anything, they loved family recipes. Chefs pulling out things older relatives made them as a child, fulfilling a family legacy, cooking the food of their heritage and history. So she just made up an entire story because of the bellini she wanted to cook, and that's kind of what you're saying.
Totally. And also, I liked that about, like, the stereo. So she has, like, she's using this stereotype of, like, the Jewish grandmother who's, like, this warm family matriarch who makes all this amazing food and the family gathers around. But it sounds like actually her grandmother was really nothing like that. Like, first of all, it sounds like her grandmother was largely a shitty cook. And, like, the stuff that she made, like, Jewish stuff, but a lot of it didn't come out that great. And also that her grandmother sounded kind of mean also. Like, sort of, like, a little insulting to her, like, was kind of putting her down. Like, her grandmother was a little bit, like, the voice of her, like, inner kind of, like, her self-deprecating. Yeah, her self-doubt. So she kind of, like, repackages that because no one wants to hear that on a show. Everyone wants to hear about, like, your sweet bubby that, like, made you a bellini. But actually, her experience that kind of fueled her to become a chef was, like, sort of the opposite of that.
Totally,
which I just
that's
thought was
interesting.
funny. Yeah.
Totally. I think that's really interesting and very true. Because I also noticed at one point when she was talking about chicken soup and her grandma's chicken soup, she says something like, the chicken soup that I make isn't anything like my grandma's chicken soup with canned stock and frozen vegetables. But never in my life have I ever heard of anybody making chicken soup out of frozen vegetables. Have you?
No.
Canned stock, fine.
Yes. My grandmother, my own first of all, like, I also, like, I kind of think both my grandmothers were, like, sort of shitty cooks too. Like, I don't really identify with, like, the bubby who's a fabulous cook and everyone gathers around, but I do remember my grandmother would make, like, fresh soup, but, like, one of the ingredients was, like, a can of soup. Like,
oh, for
she
sure.
would just, like, throw in a can of soup, just, like, because it had all the like MSG and the flavors and whatever that would just, like, kick it up a notch. So it was like, yeah, you make soup and one of the ingredients is soup. Like,
totally. But frozen vegetables really threw me for a loop. If anyone
I've
has
never
a
heard of that.
bubby
No.
or anyone who knows anyone who's made chicken soup with frozen vegetables, let us know.
They're not going to hold together. Like, frozen vegetables are like, they're going to turn into dust if you
I can't imagine it.
Yeah.
Even like what? With, like, frozen carrots? Like, I can't see it. So I'm curious if that was just like something that Amanda Elliott just threw in there, or if really someone has experience with a frozen vegetable chicken soup bubby. Because yes, bubbies that put random ingredients, like a can of Dr. Pepper goes in the sweet and sour meatballs or whatever random thing, like that feels very close to home.
Totally. Yes.
You know, a can of Coke. Don't you feel like there's random ingredients that go in sweet and sour meatballs, like a can of Coke or something strange?
Yeah. In sweet and sour meatballs and also chullin. I think a lot of people put Coke in chullin.
Yeah, I feel like also, like, guys like to be like, I put this in the chullin. And it's like, why'd you put chocolate syrup in the chullin?
Right. Well, that's a whole other thing is, like, bachelor guys thinking that they're on Top Chef when they're just, like, squeezing random things from their kitchen into a chullin pot. Yeah. Gross.
Totally. One thing, though, is that I thought I remember very clearly because I have such a great memory when it comes to random stuff, is that Alon Hall on season 2 of Top Chef for a holiday challenge made latkes or something. And it was like specifically to, incorporate his heritage in. So it was like, this is cool. Like, when Jews go on, and then again in season 20 that I'm watching right now is like, and by the way, I think it's old, is it's like people who have won. It's like all these people who have won from across. Did you know there's Top Chefs all over the world? There's like Top Chef Middle East and North Africa, Top Chef Paris, Top Chef Germany. I didn't know any of that.
Crazy.
So it's all these winners and finalists from Top Chefs across the world coming together in London for this Top Chef World Champion season.
Cool.
but some are winners of the American seasons.
Right.
And so they're making this like potluck thing and they're talking about holidays. And one chef says to another chef, like, what do you do for the holidays? And this woman's like, I'm a Jew. I don't do any of what you're doing. Like,
Right,
so there
right.
are Jews that, obviously like I know about Alon and my cousin, but even in like more recent episodes, there's Jewish top chef contestants that mention it.
Mm-hmm.
But this was like Sadie's thing. And it comes up in like every challenge. I feel like in the initial challenge, there's something they want to see you on a plate. That's why the book is called Sadie on a Plate. Like we want to see you on a plate. So they gather ingredients, and she has this vision of doing some kind of like something with smoked salmon and capers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what her vision was exactly. I don't remember if it was a bagel or she wanted to do something. And then this is so Top Chef of them, but on Chef Supreme, they have you switch baskets with another contestant and then put yourself on a plate.
Right. You have to use their ingredients, right?
And everyone's so screwed because like, the guy who makes sushi has like sushi rice and all these delicious Japanese ingredients. And now he's stuck with Sadie's Ashkenazi Jewish basket and she's stuck with his basket and they have to put themselves on a plate. Right. But she does this really cool thing where she like takes his sushi rice and kind of makes it into something like a bagel and uses the fish she was going to use for the sushi, and she still kind of puts herself on a plate.
Yeah, she does well.
She wins the first challenge, I think, which is so cool.
Yeah.
So just the whole world building of this Chef Supreme world, especially as a Top Chef fan, was really cool. But it sounds like even as someone who hasn't watched Top Chef, it was really cool.
It was really fun because I've watched reality TV, so like I said, it was fun in general, and I think it converted me. Like I finally got why it would be fun to watch one of these shows. Like it, so it did a really good job of conjuring that totally.
Yeah, the frenetic, very frantic, like I gotta put everything on the plate, I gotta put everything on the plate, I have 20 seconds left, and is so palpable in the book. And when you're watching the show too, it's like the last few seconds, like there's always someone who forgets something major,
right?
And then they like bring it out and they're like, oh, was there meant to be a protein on this plate? And then all of a sudden the chef's like,
Right.
Very stressful.
Yeah.
People get out for those kinds of things all the time, like something slightly under-seasoned or like overcooked or any of this. And I love the characters, like all the different characters.
Yeah, she did a really good job of like quickly sketching all these different people who seemed very real. Like the non-binary person who's trying to reinvent Appalachian food. Like was a whole Kel, oh, and I loved the character who's sort of like she knows as her rival back in the Seattle food scene, who she always saw as like her frenemy because they both kind of are women working in this like world of restaurants in Seattle, who also gets on Chef Supreme, and she's like, you're here. But then actually, like, I thought that was just sweet plot line that they wind up, like, it turns out they're not frenemies. Like, she really, this, what was her name? Kimberly or something like that?
I feel like it was Kristen.
Kristen? Okay, Kristen or Kimberly, like, really likes Sadie and wishes her well. And, like, Roots is genuine about, like, wishing for her success. And Sadie's like, oh, we don't have to be sort of rivals. We could just be, like, women in this world of, like, this male chef world who just support each other.
Totally. I really love that too. Also, all the guys' names were Joe. I think it was Caitlin, her friend's name. Caitlin.
Thank you. Yes.
I like that. It's such a good shtick where like when she walks in, she's like, I'm, oh, you know me, I'm Caitlin. And Kel's like, I'm Kel. And then these three guys are like, we're Joe.
They're all Joe. Yeah.
Like three guys named Joe that they all kind of like, they gave them nicknames. Like one's Vanilla Joe, one's Bald Joe or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Old Joe.
Yeah. He's like, we're Joe. Just like a couch of Joes. I love that.
Yeah. That was very cute. That seemed true. You could see that.
I know. There was a character, Nia, who was like, she had done so much research on every previous season of Top Chef. And she's like, the person who wins the first season is this percentage, likely to win all of Top Chef. And, she had everything mapped out. So it's like, if it's going to be an appetizer, she was going to make this appetizer, which really screws her at one point because she's like going to make an appetizer. And in her head, the appetizer she was going to make was a beet appetizer. But the guest judge of honor, who's Luke, the love interest asshole dad.
Yes.
By the way, he mentions that he doesn't like beets, and then she makes the beet appetizer anyway. He's like, why would you make me beets? I said I didn't like beets. And she makes a bullshit answer like, well, I thought if it was cooked properly, I would have converted you. But he's like, well, I don't like beets, so that was a bad decision. You're not winning this challenge.
Right.
But then after, she's like, I was focused on the beets. Like I was going to make this. I knew that I knew there was going to be an appetizer challenge. And I knew that if I did that, that it would have to be beets. She's mapped everything out. And I feel like that's also a very specific kind of character on these shows.
Totally. And you knew that it was all going to culminate in like, forget what you've learned, like forget what you've memorized, like go with your heart, like cook your heart. And she's like, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna cook my heart. Like you could just imagine that on a show being this like pivot point.
Of
so
course,
that was very
but also
cute.
There's like these like, you know, come to Jesus moments that people are having where they're like, who am I though?
Right. What kind of food what is my cooking my heart? How do I do it? Yeah, totally. They're all
like identity crises because they don't, but like Sadie knows who she is and knows what her food is. So that's totally not her issue because of this connection to Jewish food and Judaism.
Right. But then actually Luke, her love interest, who turns out is one of the judges on this season of Chef Supreme, he's having his whole crisis because that whole plot line is that he confided in her that he loves this sort of like Korean street food that he grew up like eating for, I guess, his mom's side of the family who was Korean, but his dad is this famous sort of like stuffy French fancy chef, and Luke has been following that path and has been afraid to cook his heart, which is like this like sort of Korean street food that he wants to like bring to the mainstream. And so like that's a whole he's going through that while the contestants are going through their own versions of it, which is cute.
Yeah, it is. So when so they have this whole romantic night. Going back to that, they kiss. Oh my God. She like feels it on her lips after they part ways and wonders if he can too.
Yeah.
And then she gets to the house, blah, blah, blah. She, you know, sees that he's a judge on the show, and he becomes a real not nice guy.
Right.
He pretends he doesn't know her name.
Yep. He's sort of acting overly cold toward her.
She's confused by it at the beginning. She does not realize at the beginning that he's totally just pretending because he wants to just get through with the next few weeks.
Right.
She thinks the Luke that she met that night is just she met two different people. He's crazy.
Right.
He's a dick.
Right.
And also like he's like, oh, Sandy must have been the name. She's like, my name's Sadie.
Right.
He's like, oh, sorry, Sandy must be the name of the other person I met on the flight and who I also took to that place. Like, oh, okay.
Like, how did that even logistically work? Like,
just, yeah, bizarre.
Right.
So he's not nice for a while, but she keeps making this amazing food, and they have kind of these different moments where they start to connect.
Mm-hmm.
The episode of the show that they're filming where she gets to see how not nice his dad is, she like runs to the bathroom at one point. She's always running to the bathroom.
Right. That's a thing. She's
it's like her version
gotta
of
pee all the time. Yeah.
And sometimes she does. And I think it's because she wants to find Luke and like backstage.
Right.
So she like runs to the bathroom, and he's like, "Go ahead," and she's like, "No, like, you know, I'm here to talk about your dad." She like wants to say something about that, and then at one point there's a challenge where like this is so Top Chef too, where like the judges come to the house and they're cooking brunch together, and they're she's paired with him. And she wants to make matzo brie, and she's hoping it's in the kitchen, in the house kitchen. Who would ever stock a kitchen that's not a Top Chef kitchen, just a random house kitchen with matzah?
Would that even be in a Top Chef kitchen? Like, why would that be?
It's possible. It could be because so many random ingredients. But if it isn't in a Top Chef kitchen, often in Top Chef, they're like, you have 30 minutes to go to Whole Foods with $115. Go.
Right.
And then they could buy the matzah there. But in this challenge, they had to use whatever was in the house.
Right.
And she's like, I was hoping, because Passover was, you know, it was recently Passover, and, you know, maybe the matzah was on sale, that somebody would have bought a box. That was a reach.
Total reach.
Sorry to nitpick, but that was a reach. There's no matzah there.
There's no matzah in that kitchen. Right.
A better thing would have been like, I packed a box because I was hoping this would have been, you know, I was hoping to have to make, you know, to be able to make matzo brie at one point.
Right. That seemed...
Because we were going to be filming over Passover, and I needed my matzo brie fixer. I don't know.
Right. No, I agree.
So they make matzo brie.
Together, yes.
Together. They have this like kind of intimate moment cooking, and also they start talking and connecting, and he's letting his guard down a little bit.
Yep. Although the cameras are still there, so they're still being very, like, they're almost like, they're forgetting, and then they're sort of remembering that they're sort of being watched. So
exactly, the cameras are there. The cameras are all they're on their mind. They kind of forget all that's happening.
Yep.
While they are really connecting and enjoying themselves, but also like there's something about her cooking that's like very beautiful to him. He feels very connected to her through her cooking.
Yeah.
He loves that taste of matzo brie.
Right. He loves that she was so passionate about showing it to him and confident that she was going to make a great batch. Which, like, I was pretty impressed by that, too. I mean, like, matzo brie is, like, it's one of those foods that's, like, it's okay when it's Passover and, like, your options are severely limited. It's sort of, like, fun in a shticky way. But in a world where it's not Passover, I don't know that I'm ever choosing matzo brie.
It's like my dad loved making it so much, and I saw that it brought him so much joy. And then there was all this like hype around how good his matzo brie was. So like to be a team player,
Sure, of course.
I always, you know, took one for the team.
And that's a fun
but
experience.
I never loved it.
You're not going to go to a restaurant.
I'd kill for it right now. I'd kill for his matzo brie, but like,
of course.
But it's not winning in Top Chef. It's not winning any challenge on Chef Supreme.
And I'm saying you're not going to go on a random Sunday in January. You're not going to a brunch place and selecting the matzo brie.
Never.
Right. So
also, I know that there's maybe there's sweet and savory options of matzo brie.
Right. I think that's true.
Hers was very sweet.
Right. I'm familiar with the sweet. You're saying you're familiar with the savory?
I don't mean it just wasn't. I don't think there was sugar. Like I think it was more of a savory matzo brie that my Abba made.
Interesting. All right.
But I'm aware based on this, it was more like French toast, very sweet and sugary and cinnamony.
Yes.
I think that might be standard.
I feel that's the standard I'm familiar with.
It is. So lots of this. So they're connecting over this food experience, and also he's very, very attractive. Everyone knows it.
Right. Yes. This is like, they just have instant, I mean, I know there's that blip where he calls her Sandy or whatever, but like really it's just like they click and that's it. It's one of those.
Yeah, they do. They click and that's it, but obviously there's the barriers.
There's a barrier, but the barriers are all external. Like it's like their chemistry is like just there.
Right, that's true. That's very true. Yeah, he's also so hot that like all the chefs just sit and discuss it at one point. And she almost feels weird that she's not a part of the conversation. So she like makes a comment just to like insert herself into the conversation.
Yes. Right.
That, like she kind of puts her foot in her mouth because like everyone's just talking about him being how cute he is.
Right.
Yeah. So they're connecting on all these, you know, mostly about food and family stuff, I feel like, but, and also their major attraction. And one night, the whole cast like goes out. They sneak out. They're not allowed to have anything. No phones, no money. Someone's like, I have cash in my back pocket, like, you know. Right. And she's like, I know somewhere close by we can go. And she takes everyone back to the convenience store Korean speakeasy in Astoria.
Right.
And they have a great night.
Yeah. They're having fun. They're cutting loose a little bit. Yeah.
The bartender remembers her, and then she has like a whole thing where she has a conversation with the bartender about how he's known Luke since he was a little boy.
Right, and the bartender tells her, like, you're the first woman that he's ever brought here. And then she realizes, like, I am special. Like, there was no other Sandy or whatever, like.
Right, totally. And then they get caught.
Right.
They get caught being out first before they get caught with their relationship. They get caught being out.
The whole group gets caught being out, yeah.
Yeah, but because, you know, they were like remote, I don't know, relatively covert. I mean, they were out in public, but they don't get in major trouble. And
it was
like
also
rumors.
all of them. I think that was their plan. Is like, if we all go out, how much trouble could we all get into?
Right. And there's sort of rumors because Top Chef is this kind of like 20-year-old thing. Chef Supreme's this old thing now, like. Right. They know what the history, there's like history on it. And so they're like, well, I heard that if you go out as a whole cast, or I heard this, that like they're really not going to do anything as long as you don't do X, Y, or Z. Like, I like that. That's part of why I wanted Alon to come on. It's like, I like that there's like all these stories and I buy it. I really do. Because another thing that was really funny is at one point they get to the studio, she gets to the studios, there's like pumpkins everywhere, there's cobwebs everywhere, there's like Halloween decor, and the judges come out and like the Padma Lakshmi of the show's like, happy Halloween, chefs. Right. And she's like, oh, I guess we're filming the Halloween episode today. Right. And I think like because Real Top Chef's been around for so long, like in the season 20 episode that I watched last night, they're like doing a family holiday potluck, but there isn't like one holiday that they're doing. Everyone's sort of bringing to the table something, you know, that that they care about. Like, so one guy does Dia de los Muertos and makes a whole meal for his dead dad. Like, this was in real Top Chef. But then Tom Colicchio, the chef and judge, sits down. He goes, well, happy whatever holiday we're celebrating, everyone. And it's just like, I feel like they've been around for so long, and they've been doing all these fake holiday episodes. So he's like, literally like, happy whatever holiday, everyone.
Right. Like, it doesn't matter what time of year it is. It's just like we're in like Top Chef universe. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like today's the Halloween episode, and she makes this Halloween-y, disgusting sounding Halloween noodle kugel graveyard.
That was nuts. That sounded crazy.
And but part of what I thought was so funny about it was she was like, they're like, wow, I didn't know that this was such a Jewish food. And she's like, well, I made it into a graveyard. Like, I don't know if they, the judges thought.
Right, like purple noodle kugel with fake little graves coming out is a Jewish tradition.
It was so funny to me.
That was really funny.
She's like, well, I Halloweenified it. Right. But it was like, there's like fake blood, like really just sounded really gross and funny. The Halloween noodle kugel graveyard. But yeah, all the food was awesome. I loved and delicious.
The food descriptions were really fun. I enjoyed all of them. That's what made me realize, oh, I get why this is such a juggernaut, this whole Top Chef universe. It's fun. It is fun seeing these concoctions, even if you don't get to eat them.
And that's why it's like even the poking fun of the fake holidays or poking fun at the product placement type thing, like it almost like I feel like the real Top Chef does that itself. Like in an episode I just watched, this guy was checking out at Whole Foods and they were about to go to this Verbo house to do the potluck, and he's going Verbo, 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 Verbo to advertise for it.
Yeah.
It's like it's
right. It's like over the top. Yeah.
It's so over the top. They're literally making appetizers on Ritz crackers. Like every time they're thirsty, they're passing back and forth the Saratoga spring water bottles. Like it's so over the top. It's cute almost.
Yeah.
So I thought that all of that was so good, and I agree about the delicious food descriptions, and I like that there were so many different cultures, and I even like that there was this black guy who was making Japanese food, and he's like, it's so annoying, like this is where I've been trained, and everyone expects me to make something else, and like it's just not, it's like everyone's having their own kind of identity crisis related to the foods that they're cooking.
Right. Although one thing that I thought was a little. I agree with this premise, but I don't know how much it was actually executed. There were a few times where Sadie was like, I want people to know Jewish food, that it's more than just bagels and lox and herring and brisket and whatever. But like, that is basically what she made. Like she made the stuff she made was that traditional Ashkenazi Jewish food. Like there was one point where she was like, I'll make a tagine, which is like Sephardic, but that was like a one-off. For the most part, she was making the things that I think most people think of as typical Jewish food. And elevated, fine, great. Elevated, and also then she would like put in like, it was like, I don't remember, like whatever, ramen. What was there? She had like, matzo ball ramen. Like she would do mixes with other like cultural things, which is also, I would eat the matzo ball ramen. It sounds great to me. But I'm just saying she'd be like, it's more than just matzo balls and brisket, but like she was cooking matzo balls and brisket. So like I didn't really see how she was illustrating it was more than that.
Totally. By the way, another person I went to high school with, Aaron Israel, he owns a restaurant in Brooklyn called Shalom Japan, where he and his wife.
I've heard of that place.
Yeah, so he owns that restaurant. He was on Iron Chef once. He was on Iron. Yeah, but it was bananas. How many chefs, Jewish chefs, grew up in my town? But yeah, so I think they make matzo ball ramen there at Shalom Japan.
Sounds great.
Sounds delicious. And I think there was a matzo ball ramen recipe in. Do you ever follow Busy in Brooklyn on Instagram? Chani Applebaum, her name is. She has 2 cookbooks.
No. Should I?
Yeah, she has a matzo ball ramen recipe in one of her cookbooks. Huh. I know, because I took it out from the library and checked it out. No, I think you're right. A lot of the food was. Because what else? I don't know what else is there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. She keeps saying there's more, but then she doesn't say what the more is really. One time she mentions like a Moroccan tagine, I think, or something like that.
Yum. It's my favorite.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I like all that Ashkenazi Jewish food. I don't need more. I think it's great. I'm just saying, what more is there?
There's herring right off the bat.
Listen, you say no more. I mean, But
there's so much herring from the very beginning. I was like, I can't wait to talk about
totally.
this with
I
you.
felt bad also that her gefilte fish, like the whole time she's talking about how she has her version of gefilte fish, and then she's gonna make it for their big finale, and something messes up. She messed it up. Like it didn't come together, and she wound up having to serve just the herring without the gefilte fish that she had planned to put with it. I felt bad about, like, I wanted to hear a description of that gefilte fish in all its glory.
I know, because, this was at the end, and she's like, it says, like, in the kitchen, Caitlin was panicking. The gefilte fish didn't set up. She was standing over a log of it, poking at it with a spoon. My stomach clenched. We'd ground fish and compressed it into a log yesterday so it could set overnight in the fridge and get nice and compact, but that clearly hadn't worked. As I watched, it crumbled into mush. I'm skipping a paragraph. Let's get out the pickled herring and see how that's doing. The pickled herring was thankfully better, thick and meaty and acidic. The onions I'd packed into the jar with it still firm and crunchy. We've got this at least, I said, my mind already moving. We can't serve the gefilte fish, but we could serve the herring. We'll make it work. Thank God. Thank God for the herring.
Yeah. Herring saves the day. I mean, this is my kind of book.
I have read other romances set in reality TV worlds, and I feel this is like one of my favorite genres. I really like reality TV. I really like reality TV competitions. This is a very fun read for me. To the point where I was like, I'm not going to be able to, I won't like a book. I felt like I had a book hangover after. Like, I really, really loved it.
Yeah, it was really fun. And she's just a really likable character. Like, you're really rooting for her.
Yeah. Oh, completely. Yeah, she really is. I really liked her. I loved it so much. There's a romance book called One to Watch about a plus-sized girl going into a bachelor type show.
Okay.
And it's such a good romance, but you also get all that the like off-camera bachelor stuff.
Yeah. Sure, that's very fun.
It's really good. One to watch. Yeah, I really like that kind of rom-com set in a reality TV thing.
It's a good one.
I also have always wondered when I watch these things, how much time do they really have? I don't understand. Like, it's like, your hour starts now. And then in this book, they're like, your hour starts now. And she's like, and then they paused everything and we had time to map out exactly what we're making and process. Like, oh, that makes more sense to me. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like,
and they show how they're doing multiple takes of things. So you get a sense of that. Totally.
Yes. And I appreciate it.
I mean, there's one point where like one of the judges like kind of makes a sweet comment to the other one. And she's like, maybe they've been having a long-standing like secret romance on this show. So she's sort of like, maybe there's other layers of behind the scenes that I'm not even aware of.
Totally. There's
the
crushes happening everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
And I think, it was great. And so ultimately, I don't know if we want to
let's keep going with what happens with the romance. So they, at one point, like, the barriers are getting kind of broken down more and more. There's also restaurant wars, it's called Restaurant Wars in Top Chef. Here it's called Battle of the Spatulas, where they have to like run these fake restaurants. And also on Real Top Chef, they go into people's real restaurants and cook a meal. And so at one point, they cook a meal in Luke's really highly regarded restaurant in the city.
Yes.
And so they're in the kitchen at the end after filming's done. They've cooked a whole meal, and he's sort of like, she's like, what are you doing here? He's like, we have customers coming in tomorrow. I have to see how much damage was done. And he's kind of cleaning up the kitchen, and she's helping, and they're talking and blah, blah, blah. Maybe they're talking about her food or something going on. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. They kiss. Mm-hmm. They kind of just can't not at that point.
Right. It's pretty, like, there's like, he like puts her up on the counter. There's like produce falling.
It is hot. And then all of a sudden
like,
she's like, oh my God, Luke, a camera.
Yeah, she sees like the blinking camera and she's like, oh my God, of course they're filming in here. Like we're screwed.
And she does not sleep the entire night. Like,
she's like, I messed this whole thing up for myself. Because she's gotten really far. She's like in the final like 3 or 4 at this point.
Yeah. And at one point she actually gets off, but she gets to cook back into the competition, which is called like,
the comeback or something like that.
The comeback on Chef Supreme. It's called the comeback.
Yeah.
And it's called Last Chance Kitchen on Top Chef. Like, all of this is real. I really appreciated all of it. Where like
That's great.
she didn't know it was happening on, I think on current show they know, like, you still can come back in Last Chance Kitchen, but she just thought she was getting the boot. Then she cooks her way back into the competition against Kel maybe or something. And so she's made it to like top 3 or 4. She's done really well. And then they kiss, it gets recorded, and like the next day the production person like is like, I hope you won't sue us, and Luke no longer works for Chef Supreme.
Right.
And they basically have swung it like that he did something. Like, that's not really what happened.
Like, he did something wrong, and so he's, like, agreed to step down. And then the old judge that he replaced, who had like a heart attack or something, has come back for the final episode or 2 or whatever.
Right.
So he sort of, like, sacrificed his role as the judge to save her.
Right, which is beautiful and also makes her feel very upset and also probably loved.
Right.
And she's down to she's a finalist. She does not win.
I mean, does not win. Although, like, the great thing is the whole time what she wants is, like, the ability to open her own restaurant. That's sort of, like, her end game. And then you find out at the end that, like, this sort of fancy pants couple who's been at all these different, you know, they have guests at these different challenges, like the pretend restaurant or whatever, when they're serving what they've made. And there's this one couple who again and again she's like made faux pas in front of throughout. Like, she spilled an appetizer on them one time, or like she said something sort of rude to them one time because she was, you know, distracted. Yes, at the end, they introduce themselves to her as owners of this big successful restaurant group, and they're like, we love your food. One of them is Ashkenazi Jewish also, and they're like, we want to invest. We want to like we want to invest in a restaurant for you. So it's like, even though she didn't win, she sort of like, she got what she wanted, which is like backing for her own restaurant.
Totally. And then fast forward to the epilogue. She's with Luke. She's opening this restaurant called Wander, because we wandered in I loved the name.
So cute. Yeah, because the Jews wandered. Yeah,
the Jews wandering in the desert and the diaspora. And they're together. They walk by.
Luke is opening up his own like Korean restaurant, doing the food that he wants to do.
Yeah, named after his grandma. And they're like, they walk past Magnolia Bakery in the city, and people sort of look at them like they're not famous enough to get stopped, but they're like famous enough to get recognized a little, where people are like, isn't that, or is that?
Right, like that's someone. Yeah.
Which reminds me that obviously, now that I know you've never seen Top Chef, you didn't know this was going on, but I also didn't know this was going on. But in one of my Park Slope apartment parties that you and William were at, either New Year's or that there was one right after, like you were at all those parties, there was a Top Chef contestant at one of them, but it was a season I hadn't watched, so I didn't know. And people kept coming up to me like, there's someone from Top Chef here. There's someone from Top Chef here, but I don't know who it was. I still have no idea who it was. And even if I go back and watch all 20 seasons, I'll never know. But there must have been a couple of years where I didn't watch Top Chef. You and I were at a party with a contestant. Famous enough that some people were like, isn't that? But not, you know, not ruining her night. But anyway,
it's a good level of fame.
It's a great level. So that's that. They're together. The restaurants are getting opened, and they're in love.
Another happily ever after.
Another.
Liked it.
Yeah, it was great. I really recommend it. Whether or not you like Top Chef, I recommend it. It was such a fun read. It's great.
Yes. Yes, really liked it. But I'm gonna. What scene do you have? Do you have a recommendation of where I should start if I'm gonna enter the Top Chef universe? There's so much; it's overwhelming, to be honest.
I know that wherever you start is fine, because like that's just the way that they produce these shows.
Right.
But okay, I have to say, I'm enjoying season 20, and that's without having watched 15 of these.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm gonna jump in. I'll keep you posted.
Keep me posted, please do. Amanda Elliott, if you're listening, we loved this book.
Really
Thank
great.
You.
Fun.
And,
thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, want to hear what's happening next?
For us? Yeah.
I am really excited to talk about what's happening next. So, as everyone knows, we read Hot Rabbi by Aviva Blakeman a long time ago, one of our first reads, I want to say. I did not realize that Hot Lumberjack, the sequel, which we've referenced a ton. We've never read it, but we've talked about it. Especially because
we sure have.
We'll talk more about this after we read it, but Mitch has been, lumberjacking in our backyard since we bought the house.
Amazing.
And so, Hot Lumberjack's very close to me now.
It hits home.
Now that it really does. Now that I'm married to one, but the craziest thing is that it's about a Jewish preschool director, so we've bumped it up.
Great.
And here's what Hot Lumberjack's book description is by Aviva Blakeman. Abby thought she had a charmed life. She's got her dream job, family and friends who love her, and she just bought a great old house. Everything would be perfect if not for the logging company that's just set up shop next door, and the guy she can't seem to stop stooping, who just happens to be their chief tree cutter or lumberjack. Ilan took over his father's business 3 years ago, and he's proud of the success he's earned. Getting the contract to clear the Howell acreage is just another in a string of achievements. He didn't mean for it to be such a sore subject for the people of the neighborhood. He especially didn't mean to find himself naked with Abby, at least not more than once. Definitely not more than twice. Too bad it seems to keep happening. Worse, they can't say 2 words to each other without wanting to throw things, but there's no way the attraction will last. Nobody who gets that turned on can stay that way and get anything done, right?
Ooh.
Wow.
Okay. Also, Ilan means tree.
Oh, love that. Love that. Ilan means tree. We just learned that Zev meant wolf in our last episode. Also, we've been talking about an Ilan this whole episode. Now, Hot Lumberjack's name is Ilan. Wow.
It's all coming together.
Ilan means tree. He was destined.
Yeah. This has been, he's born to be a logger.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is the sequel to Hot Rabbi, Hot Lumberjack. Truly can't wait. That's what we're reading next.
This has been a long time coming, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too. And now we have a little bit of a relationship with Aviva Blakeman, whereas before we didn't. I was just reading out all her tweets, so I'm excited.
Awesome.
I told her that we're reading it, and she was excited. I'm going to tell you what she said. She said, OMG, yay. Also, not for nothing, but it's absolutely a great romance for when you want a romance but don't want high drama. Everybody is emotionally intelligent and there's loads of fun banter.
Amazing.
That's perfect. I don't want high drama.
No, absolutely not. And I love an emotionally intelligent romance.
I also told her that I'm really excited to read it because my husband's been cutting down a lot of trees. Great. Okay, Hot Lumberjack,
So
if you're
good.
reading along with us, do it. It's going to be sexy.
See you there.
If stooping is in the book description, if the word stooping is in the book description, there's going to be a lot of it.
Also, I remember from Hot Rabbi, that was my first experience of the multi-chapter sex scene, which is an achievement.
Yeah,
so
multi-chapter
I'm
sex scene. Forgot about that.
Hoping to get a reprisal of that, yes.
Yeah. So join us in reading Hot Lumberjack. It's available on Amazon. And this episode is produced by William Levin. It's brought to you by Hanukkah Pong, as was our last episode I forgot to mention. And we'll see you next time. Rate us, follow us, rate us 5 stars, leave us a review. We'd love more reviews.
We're on YouTube podcasts now, in addition to Spotify and Apple and Google.
Yep. Truly it's really hard to not listen.
Yeah.
No excuse.
You have to go out of your way, really. Yeah, exactly.
Bye, Mom.